and begin the meeting. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to this committee, the Overview Committee. My name is Councillor Paul Prentice, Chair of the committee, and the Overview Committee undertakes pre-decision scrutiny of reports going to the Cabinet on the Council's policies, projects, budget and services. We also have present at this meeting Councillor Mel Dawkins, Cabinet Member for Environment and Climate Change, and also Councillor Pip Hazelton is observing as well, the Cabinet Member for Housing. And they're here to observe the debate as part of our early engagement before decisions are taken. And I believe Councillor Dawkins is going to say a few words as well before the net zero item. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being filmed and made available to view in live and archive form via the Council's website. If you are seated in the public gallery, it is possible that the cameras may capture your image. If you wish to avoid being filmed, it is recommended you make a member of staff aware who can direct you where to sit. Members of the public are welcome to make their own recordings of the meeting using whatever non-disruptive methods they think are suitable. There is no fire alarm planned for this evening, but should the alarm sound, please leave via the nearest available emergency exit. And two of the closest exits are through the glass door behind you to my left and through the double doors onto the riverside behind you. Please do not use the exit at the back to my right, as access is currently restricted by the works outside. Please meet at Tower House car park. The Westgate Garden gates on the riverside are locked at dusk, so members of the public must leave via the Guildhall via the side exit behind the glass door. So just moving to apologies. Pippa, do we have any apologies for absence, please?
We have apologies from Councillors Carnac, Butcher, Flanagan and Smith.
Thank you very much. Do we have any declarations of interest?
Substitute.
Oh, do we have any substitutes? Sorry, I should have asked.
Sorry, Councillor Thomas is in attendance for Councillor Carnac and Councillor Forrester is in attendance for Councillor Butcher.
Thank you. Sorry, declarations of interest. Any receipt? Any? No, thank you. And we've got no public speakers registered for this meeting. And we have also the minutes of the meeting held way back on the 22nd of May, 2025. Can I get those agreed by general assent? Agreed? Yep, thank you very much. We'll move straight into item 6 then, which is the consultation on the net zero action plan for 2025 to 2030. That's on pages 12 to 57 of your papers. We'll start off by hearing from Leo Whitlock, Head of Policy and Communications. And Leo, if you want to make your introduction to the report.
Chair, I think Pippa's going to put my presentation up on the screen. That's right. Get rid of that picture quick. Thank you. Lovely, thank you. So this evening we're asking the committee to be act as consultees as part of these three consultations that we're going to talk about tonight. And just to talk you through, give you a little bit of background on the Net Zero Action Plan. As you remember, Canterbury City Council declared a climate emergency in 2019. And then it was an all-party unanimous decision. And then we adopted the Climate Change Action Plan after consultation in May 2021. An enormous amount has changed in that time. Still a lot to do to reach our target of 2030 to be net zero. And our net zero action plan is designed to focus our efforts as a council and our resources to build a legacy that we can pass on with pride to the next council, whatever it may look like as it comes along as part of local government reorganisation. And climate change, tackling the climate change is a key plank of the council's corporate plan. Lots of good stuff has happened so far. There's lots more to do. The Warm Home Social Fund, £6.6 million from the government, added to £11.25 million from the HRA to insulate council homes and install high-performance windows and doors to keep heat or replace or upgrade heating systems. We were awarded £1.5 million from the Warm Homes Local Grant. That's for private house owners and renters to use that money to improve the energy efficiency of their homes. And we're working through a really complex procurement process at the moment before we go out to invite people to apply for that money. We've moved into our new offices in Whitefriars, and our old offices in Military Road, accounting for 8% of the council's emissions. So we've moved. Sorry.
I think we might have a problem with the screens. Sorry, Leah.
No problem. Do you want me to carry on, or
Hang on for just a
just a
sec.
sec? Yeah.
Just a second, in case there's anything we can do to. Are they working on this side of the? All okay.
Yeah.
I think we'll carry on with Leo's dulcet tones.
That's twice I've been called lovely this week, and I didn't believe it both times. So we've moved into our new offices. We're moving our refuse vehicles to HVO, vegetable oil, to reduce their emissions by up to 90%. And one of the major projects we've been working on is the Elvis House, 31A, St Peter's Place, a retrofit project to learn lots of lessons about that type of house and how we can retrofit those homes that we look after, and lots more. And the vision in the plan is for us to become a leading organisation in emissions reduction, building resilience into services and assets, and enabling the district in all aspects of effective net zero action. The plan outlines the challenges around paying for climate action, sets out the council's baseline emissions, and prioritises tackling the council's emissions as our first job. We're in the middle of a 12-week consultation, which ends on Monday, 3rd of October at 5 p.m. And we've been giving the consultation a big push on social media, although there has been some scepticism in the comments that have come back about climate action and the need to take action, which is an interesting development. So, as I said earlier, tonight Overview Committee is acting as a consultee. We're going to gather your feedback and feed that into the consultation process. And we report your views back to Cabinet alongside a revised draft for adoption in November. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Leo. I was just going to ask, was it Councillor Bray, did you have an item you wanted to, something you wanted to raise now, or shall we hear from Councillor Dawkins first? Yeah, I was just going to invite Councillor Dawkins if she wanted to say anything before we move into the main debate, and then I'll bring yourself in.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Leo, for your introduction. I just want to sort of say a couple of words, but I'm really here to hear what you've got to say. You know, it's still in consultation. Really interested to hear what your thoughts are about this plan. Just a couple of comments that I did actually make at the Cabinet when we were deciding whether we were going to go to consultation on this draft or not. It's very much a plan about just so you're just a few comments. Yeah, so it's very much a plan for the council's own estate. It's till 2030, so it's a very short window. So it's very focused on getting Canterbury's own estate to net zero. There is a bigger, wider picture, we all know that, but this plan is very, very focused on that. So it's very pragmatic, it's very realistic, and the point of it is to get the job done. So we get to net zero by 2030. It's less than 5 years, which isn't very long. So I know I know that there's, we all want to be ambitious, we all want more, but it is really important that we fulfil our duty to get to net zero by 2030, and that's very much what this plan's about, on a very small budget. So we're relying very much on grants. So I just want to make that point. You can tell me otherwise, of course you can. And Leo's touched on it as well. We know that there's a growing denial in the public space towards net zero and climate change, it not even existing at all. And there's a certain political parties that we know of and other groups that are going out there to making all these points, and kind of a bit worried about the amount of information that's going out there about this issue. So it'd be interesting to hear what you've all got to say tonight. I feel like it's creating an unnecessary hysteria, and this, to me, it's not really about climate change. Climate change, of course, is the symptom, whether you want to believe that or not. This plan is about reducing our carbon emissions to net zero. Whether you believe that's because of climate change or not, that's neither here nor there. That is our point. That's what we want to do. We want to find a way of reducing, well, essentially getting rid of our dependency on fossil fuels altogether, and there's certain ways of doing things and finding sustainable solutions. And these solutions will ultimately benefit our residents because they will bring the cost of bills down because their energy bills will be cheaper. It will make their homes more efficient, you know, because they won't be so leaky and losing heat in the colder months or boiling in the warmer ones. You know, we want to make our infrastructure, our transport, not pump out a whole load of dirty fumes, you know, making our air quality not so good for our residents. So that's what it's about. Whatever you believe is causing that or why it's happening is neither here nor there. And, you know, I do worry about some of the the scepticism that's going on in certain posts. So I'll be interested to hear what you've got to say all about that. As Leo's already said, one of the costliest element to, and the highest emitter of gas emissions within our council estate is the refuse part, you know, the waste and the grounds maintenance contract, and also following that, the old people's housing and accommodation. So there are some bits in there about how to tackle that. But I will be quiet now because, as I say, I'm really interested to hear what you've got to say, and I'll make note. And then obviously the deadline is on the 3rd of October, and we've had 26 responses so far, which is quite small. It'd be great if you could go out into your wards and try and get people, or your social groups or whatever, and try and get more people to contribute, whatever they want to say. Be good to hear. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dawkins. I think the first hand I saw just before was Councillor Brady, and I see Councillor Old, then Councillor Mellish. Councillor Brady.
Thank you, Councillor Prentice. I've just realised that my submission will be best placed in the consultation engagement item because it is relevant to the process that we're carrying out. So if I'll give way to everybody else in the next item, I'll speak on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Old was next.
Thank you, Chair. Like many others, I suspect, I've only recently become aware of the huge impact on greenhouse gas emissions from data storage. And I don't see that as an area that's really being covered here. I take the point that Councillor Dawkins has said we're concentrating on our estate, but is that not one of our indirect use sources of greenhouse gases from data storage? And I wonder if there are areas in that we ought to be looking at or at least considering. Thank you.
Leo, is that something you want to come back on at this point?
I'll take that away, Councillor Old, and come back to you on that. But it's a fair point to make.
Councillor Mellish, please.
Thank you, Chair. Mine are really just clarification kind of questions, I suppose, or queries. First, on the rented accommodations, it said that we should obviously try to access the Warm Home Fund and to pay the tenants or enable and fund the tenants to improve their homes. What's the role of the landlord in all of that? There's no clarification, I don't think, in the paper about actually holding the landlord to account to ensure that their property is up to standards. You talk about so the second point is on net zero organisation of the organisation by 2030 around its core activities. And again, I query, what are the core activities? No definition in the paper about what the core activities are. Or is it in the scope, in those three scopes that are set out in the paper? My third point is on it's on page 19 of it, on the decarbonisation of social housing stock. You said you will endeavour to submit applications to the Warm Home Funds. Why endeavour? Will you not do this? So what would hinder such an application? And fourth is really just a note, I suppose, that there are no EV chargers in any of the car parks in Herne Bay. and in particular the central car park, on William Street. I assume that we intend to change that. Thank you.
Yeah, do you want to come up?
Lovely. In terms of Warm Homes Fund, Councillor Millish, I didn't quite understand the point. There's two separate schemes. There's the social, and if I'm being patronising, please say. The Warm Homes Social Fund is a big chunk of government money plus our own money to tackle our own social housing, to bring properties up to EPC standard. And if we can work it so that we're tackling some of our sheltered housing schemes, which are some of our biggest emitters, that would be the golden thread, and that would be really, really good. On the Warm Homes local grant, that is for people private house owners and landlords and renters to apply to the scheme. And we're working through the criteria to nail down what the criteria will be. That, again, to apply for a cash grant from us to retrofit their homes with better standard windows, doors, heating systems and insulation. So in terms of the landlord's responsibility, I wasn't quite sure what you meant.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. You say it also for the renters and the landlords to apply. Therefore, surely there is a relationship between the renter and the landlord. And I thought it's the landlord's duty, first of all, to ensure that their property is up to standard, and the renter to inquire and ensure that the landlord carries out their duties. It seems to be that we're going to be paying the renters, or not paying the renters, sorry, but making a grant to renters, which kind of goes around the role of the landlord.
Maybe I misspoke and it was more the landlords that apply, but I'll double check and come back to you, Councillor Miller. Yeah. In terms of core activities, it is the scope 1, so the ones, the emissions that we're in direct control on. Otherwise, it's really challenging to encourage others. Decarbonisation schemes, applying for grants. I think the paper's slightly old because it's taken a little while to come through the system. Warm Homes Grant, Social Fund, and the Warm Homes Grant, local grant, again, were applications. We've applied to the Public Sector Decarbonisation Scheme for the Beanie, and we'll apply as often as we can as these grant pots open up. Sometimes the challenge is that we need evidence from consultants, so we need to compete for these pots of money at risk by paying out for consultants to get the evidence together, and there's never a guarantee that you're going to win the grant. So that is a real challenge, but there is a Climate Change Reserve to help us seed fund that sort of work so that we can apply for as much as we possibly can and bring more back into the council. Hopefully that's all. EV charges in Herne Bay, I will take that back, and that's a very good consultation response. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Buckman was next.
Breath. Sorry, yeah, it was just a couple of things really about where the consultation is going. What is the age range that people can feed back into? Is it sort of 16 or 18, or is there an age range on it? Obviously, sorry, go on before I carry on.
I don't think we'd stop anyone taking part.
It doesn't matter.
No, but we can break down the demographics of who's taken part and who hasn't.
Yeah, no, but it'd just be interesting if it's being pushed further into sort of youth setups and schools and things like that. So that the media that they look at, not Facebook and silly things like that, the actual younger people look at different media, and if it's being pushed onto there. And then is there any update on sort of taxi licensing? Are like private hire cars or whatever going to be encouraged to have lower emissions or be electric? And we also pushing sort of thinking about last mile delivery. Is there anywhere to put on about last mile delivery so we don't have the bigger, heavier, polluting vehicles coming closer into the city? And obviously, I was going to talk about something on the impact or the relationship with KCC, but as this is more focused, I won't. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'd have to come back to you to double check on taxi licensing, but I know the team have done a lot of work to encourage taxi drivers to change models to be more fuel efficient and carbon neutral. Last mile delivery probably wouldn't be our own emissions. We're trying to electrify our own fleet as quickly as we possibly can. and I won't touch on the relationship with KCC. I'll move on.
Councillor Forrester was next.
Thank you, Chair. It's a very discreet point, but I noticed that the action plan will be reviewed annually at Scrutiny Committee in the proposals. I wondered if that's sufficient, particularly given the thematic approach of scrutiny now. So this portfolio will be looked at annually in any event, and particularly the short time frame for the action plan. And therefore, if semi-annually, it would be a better frequency of monitoring. Thank you.
I think that would be a decision for councillors to make. We'd be open to that.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if this is the correct meeting to bring this up. When it comes to retrofitting, I said the report on page 16, details number 2. It mentioned about installing heat source pumps. I've heard on the radio quite recently that someone's actually had a energy rating on their property. They were A, B, and had solar panels fitted and everything was looking great. They wanted to go to A, so they put a heat source pump in, which they installed, and basically because they got the heat source pump, they went into a C. Now, it was an error, and then they're back to B. But one of the reasons the heat source pump systems are bringing it back down to say to the C is the price of gas versus electricity. Now, my concern is if we start retrofitting these into our council properties, our tenants can end up paying more for their energy because electricity is more expensive than the gas. So it's good for the environment, but some of the residents that struggle to pay their gas bills and electric bills, it could have an effect on them. So it's something we have to really consider whether we're doing the right thing personally for residents. That's just a comment on that and to take it away. I've got a few comments, if I may. When it comes to dust carts, you mentioned about are we replacing the dust cart systems? Because the ones we've got now are Euro 6. They use a thing called blue, I can't think what it's called now, which is an additive that's added to it to make it Euro 6. AdBlue, sorry, that's what it's called. Will that, if you're running on chip oils, will that interfere with the AdBlue? Because I've got Euro 6 van myself, and I don't think I'm allowed to put diesel in, cooking oil into that, chip oils into that system, because it affects the AdBlue. So, and if the AdBlue fails, the vehicle stops and that's it. Got to be towed. It can't be driven after that. Peter Alders mentioned about data storage. It's kind of a bit off subject, but it's a bit of a thing of mine. When it comes to the data storage, what they're actually talking about now is it's becoming a massive thing, data storage, and we are talking about putting them in this area. I've read it in the reports and stuff. Now, data storage takes a horrendous amount of water and electricity. Two things that we actually run out of. We've run out of water, drinking water in this area, and we've run out of electricity. They say we don't have enough to charge all the vehicles into there. So we just have to be careful about the infrastructure, what we're requesting, and what route we actually go down to. When it comes to EV charging for Herne Bay, when we had the car park renewed and tarmacked over, me and Andrew Cook at the time insisted that the cabling, there was an infrastructure put there so the cabling could be done. And actually, at some point when the car park was done, there were 6 or 4 or 5 or something marked AV charging points. We thought, great. But there's not enough power to go to those sockets. So we've had to have them removed because at the point I asked the officer to actually remove them from AV charging because actually we're losing 4 or 5 parking spaces that we can't
Thank you,
use.
Councillor Thomas. I think you made most of the points, haven't you, that you wanted to make. There's quite a lot in there for Leo to respond to. So
Okay.
if you don't mind, I'm just going to ask him to respond to some of those points.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
I'll double check about the cost of air source heat pumps and I'll feed that in as a part of the consultation response. AdBlue is not part of my expertise, but I know the dust carts are being converted to take HVO. So I don't know if AdBlue is added to that or not. So it's the existing fleet, but they'll be converted to take HVO. Data centres, I'll feed that into the consultation. I'm afraid I don't know. I don't have the technical expertise to know about the cabling at William Street, but I'll find out and let you know.
It's always been a pain on the dust carts. I mean, what's the cost of converting a dust cart? I mean, it's all right doing all this infrastructure, but actually it's costing it's the taxpayers' money we're spending. And if we're spending more on taxpayers' money than we have, because Euro 6 vehicles are fine. They're pumping out, you know, there shouldn't be a problem with that. The chip fats, I mean, I don't know what pollutants comes out of that. So,
My understanding, it's a relatively straightforward process, but I think the cost is something that we should definitely get some clarity on, and that's something I'd like noted. And
but if we're going to consultation on this, people might well, yes, a brilliant idea, but if it's going to cost us £10,000 or £20,000, it maybe not.
a relatively common practice and procedure, but I think that's definitely something we've picked up to go back to Cabinet on.
Yeah, there's definitely an amount allocated in the budget, but I just can't think of it off the top of my head. I'll find out and let you know. I'll let the committee know.
Thank you, Leo. Councillor Heaver.
Thank you, Chair. I did address the last Cabinet meeting on the 16th of June, some may know, so I'll try not to repeat myself too much, but I tried in a kind of measured way to express a genuine concern or alarm about the lack of urgency, lack of ambition, lack of determination in the plan, and lack of measurable metrics so that whether we disagree or agree, or whether it's a good plan or a bad plan, how would we know? And there wasn't opportunity, or it wasn't the right time then to go into any sort of detail. But since then, I've had a chance to look at it in more detail and compare it to the 2021 plan and talk to people who know a lot more about it than me. And yeah, those concerns are still very, very acute in my mind, in the mind of others that understand this stuff better than I do. The climate emergency was declared, as you quite rightly said, in 2019, and we've seen in the last few months the effect on water supplies, sea level rise risks, particularly to my ward and the coastal regions. I think they're forecast to go up by 1 metre by the end of this century. I think we all know the story, and I just don't think this plan reflects that urgency. And I think the very valid point that Councillor Dawkins made about the political climate changing and the impact of Reform UK, who I think next week will be looking to rescind the KCC climate emergency. I think it's the time for us to be more bold and more brave and more determined to deliver the right result for the residents of this district. I just want to make a couple of specific points so it doesn't become too waffly. One is a question which I'll come to at the end, but I did compare this with the 2021 plan, and it has to be said a lot of this looks like the 2021 plan, but with the deadlines or the timescale shifted right. Not all the time, but there's a lot of that going on. One specific is as an example, is that the 2021 plan, I think it's action number 1 back in 2021 when the original thing was done. I think it's called NZ1, which is to, sorry, if I don't get the right note. In NZ1, which looks to change electricity power supply to renewable or green sources by 2021, 2022. More or less the same ambition appears at number 5 on the current top 10 actions, but not until 2028. I mean, that really doesn't sound very ambitious or very much like dealing with an emergency. I know it's only one example, but I use it because obviously we don't want to go on and rigorously examine every line item. So that's a real concern for me and for many other people that I've spoken to. And the other thing that I didn't understand, and this might be my ignorance rather than a fault in the plan, is that obviously we need to know if we've started this process in May 2021, how far have we come? And we're now in 2025. The baseline was set in 2021. Have we achieved 1% towards net zero, 20%, 25%, 50%? Are we 99% of the way there? And if we don't know that, how can we have any confidence we're going to get to the end result? Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's a fair comparison. If you would like to feed that detailed feedback line by line into the consultation, it'd be very, very welcome. Some of the deadlines have shifted. We did have a global pandemic in the middle of all that, where we had to keep council services running and deal with that card that was dealt us. But please do make those comments in the detailed consultation and encourage those people you've been talking to do the same. In terms of percentage, we can look at that and see if we can come back with a realistic, robust figure so that you can see our progress. I'll take some advice on that and come back to you, Councillor Heaver, if that is okay. But again, please feed that into the consultation response.
Heaver?
Yeah, sure. I'll happily do that. But do I infer from that we don't know? Because it's a pretty basic question. How far are we? How much progress have we made in a very important plan for an existential issue, isn't it?
I can give you outcomes, but I can't give you a percentage of, I don't know a percentage, but I can give you exact outcomes like I did at the start of the presentation.
If you don't mind, Councillor Dawkins, shall I ask you to sum up some points at the end? Is that okay? Or is it something you need to say? What we tend to do is we have the cabinet member right at the beginning, but I don't mind taking points at the end if that's okay. I've got Councillor Thomas next on the list. Sorry, Councillor Smith, Dan Smith next on the list. Sorry, Councillor Thomas has already spoken.
Thank you, Chair. Couple of three things. Firstly, on Councillor Thomas's point, I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but as I understand matters, the price of electricity is linked to the price of gas, and there's a kind of that's what holds the price of electricity artificially high, and that net zero electricity is actually per unit cost cheaper. So, and that the current government, I believe, are actually looking at this issue. So, to a degree, so that may well become unlinked nationally in the near future. But it's something that we're worth keeping an eye on, just for the purposes of this, and it will have a price on it, change relative to the use of electricity and the heat source pumps. Councillor Thomas mentioned. The other thing I was wondering about was a sort of the potential usage of contracts covering contractors that we use and also commercial tenants that we use. Is there in the contract agreements as they come up, because obviously these things are on a rolling structure, to encourage greater moves towards the net zero from either the arrangements we've got from an external contractor or from our tenants. And also I think that there should also perhaps be a marketability on the tenants, because I think commercial tenants would benefit. Some of the Whitefriars and so on would be quite useful if they could show their net zero credentials. And then also on the point about the lack of progress between originally targeted at 2021, it was 2019 to 2021, the original target, and I appreciate there was a pandemic in the middle of that, but it was a 2-year timeline, and 23 we more or less finished the pandemic, and we've had a similar timeline since then, so perhaps we are underperforming on that front, and it may be worth taking away as a comparison, because you're looking at a similar timeline to have achieved anything. Thank you.
Come back. Thank you, Chair. I think that our new climate change officer is working with the procurement team to try and build that procurement piece into what we do. In terms of tenants, we are trying to encourage our tenants to become carbon neutral. And I'll take your point about the lack of progress.
Yeah, Bill.
Thank you. Just to pick up, Councillor Smith, your point about tenants, I think on where we've got new leases coming in, I think we have greater opportunity to do that. I think one of the issues is we have the vast majority of leases are quite old and quite sort of antiquated as such. So it's an ongoing issue which we can address as we go forward. That doesn't answer the problem, I agree, but I think there's only limited ability for us to actually grapple with the new ones as they come into our control now.
I agree, and that's exactly the point I was making, is that it's a rolling thing that will happen. But I think to the point about measuring it, the change to contracts is something that you can actually measure, and that obviously that will show that there is a potential which we can then monitor of an improved situation on this.
Councillor Brady.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Buckman had a really good point about engagement with young people. So I just want to delve a little bit further into that and ask how are we engaging with educational settings before the consultation ends? It's really important to get a wide-ranging, as been mentioned, demographic and views. So just hear a little bit more on how we are going into universities, secondary schools, even primaries, to listen to what the future generation is saying. And also, I'd just like to say that I disagree with Councillor Heaver when he says that this isn't bold enough. Coming from KCC, Environment and Transport Committee, when we see that KCC is trying to cancel Vision Zero and the political baseline is shifting, it's not just KCC, but during the Environment and Transport Committee, Transport for South East, which is a body made up of all transport authorities, they still have net zero in that strategy, but they've changed the line from being a world leader into net zero by 2050. And this is 2030. So I think what Councillor Dawkins and officers are doing should be applauded, because they're not changing their baseline. They're staying true to what we've set out. We're engaging with residents to try and find out if they agree with this course. And I think it should be applauded and not criticised for not being bold enough. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chair. On engagement with young people, universities, the student unions, the FE colleges and schools are part of our consultation list. Unfortunately, I don't have an enormous army of staff that have been out to do outreach with schools. But we certainly look at pushing it again on social media channels that young people use between consultation officers and various other staffing resource issues. We'll have to take another look at that because there is another month to go.
Just if I may, so there are a number of youth committees that are around. I'm just wondering if we can also engage with them because they're politically minded. So I'm sure they will promote engagement in this with other young people as well. And naturally, TikTok and engagement there will have amplified that desire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brady. I just wanted to mention a few points before we summarise, and I will bring in Councillor Dawkins to say a few words just at the end. But it was a point about everyone's favourite subject, the park and ride. On page 55 of the papers, it talks about the emissions from the different types of vehicle that are currently operated by Stagecoach and the park and ride service. And what's quite surprising, actually, is that the tonnes of CO2 comes out at much higher for single-decker vehicles than it does double-decker vehicles, which is counterintuitive when you think about the extra weight of a larger vehicle. But that's a sort of an aside when I think actually what we should be looking at is how we prepare the infrastructure for what we want to achieve at the end of the current contract. And one point I'd like to sort of the Cabinet to take away and look at in more detail, and officers to look at in more detail, is we have large sites where at the moment I think they're being underutilised. And what we haven't really fully considered is how, assuming we go for electric vehicles with the future park and ride contract, how that infrastructure will be funded. And if that's going to be funded as part of a widespread renewal of the bus fleet in the district. At the moment, we have no control over that fleet. We don't have any particular powers over funding new vehicles for that fleet. But I wonder if there's something the council can do that would enable that new infrastructure, and possibly working with other partners to do that. Because for me, what's not in this report at the moment is how we get from a diesel fleet to a zero emission fleet. It's the getting there which is missing for me at the moment. Assuming that a future contractor pays for that infrastructure, that's fine. But I think that's not necessarily a given, bearing in mind there's quite a lot of infrastructure costs. Then you could potentially work with partners to, for example, provide charging facilities for other vehicles, because obviously charging facilities are expensive, and you could possibly get income for the council from offering those charging facilities to other users, whether that be small vehicles, large vehicles, whatever. We may, in 5-10 years' time, have electric HGVs after all. So that's something to bear in mind. Councillor, I don't see any other councillors wanted to speak. Councillor Buttman, I'll bring Councillor Buttman, and Councillor Dawkins was to come back on some of those points earlier.
Just sort of a quick one, really. To reach the net zero, is there any offsetting to go on rather than actual meet the zero by cutting everything? Are there, like, the offsetting plans to get down there as well? Or, like elsewhere, doing, we know what I mean.
I think our preference would be to cut emissions as much as we possibly can, and then we may have to look at offsetting at some point.
Yeah, Councillor Dawkins, if you wanted to come back on one or two points.
Yeah, I think the plan is, if we have to offset, we will, but we haven't got a number on that, and we're not going, we're going to offset 20%. We'd rather have it lower as nothing, but as we go through the plan, we'll find out. But you can see in the plan, there's, I can never say the word, sequenciation actions in there. That's planting more trees, carbon sinks, that sort of thing. So those will all be part of that anyway. So ideally, we wouldn't want to have too much of that. Just coming back in some of the points, the heat source pump thing. I think when when all of that comes about through those grants, I think it would be looked like more holistically. You would look at it. You wouldn't just put heat source pumps in. You'd want to put a suite of what's the word? Suite of things. I'll just say things in there to help with that house. So it might be you're insulating. So if you insulate very well, then you won't need to have the heating on so much. The idea is that you have a house that's, completely contained, so you wouldn't actually lose any heat. Also solar and battery as well. So we have all of those things going on. So you might, if it was a block of flats, you might have solar on the roof, the whole house, the whole block, and they would be all using that electricity with a battery. So that's going to bring down all the costs. And of course, you're not using gas, so your bill will just be one bill of electricity, and you don't have the gas on top. So there is going to be a reduction of some sort. So that will all have to be taken into account anyway when you're doing a feasibility study, an assessment on how you're going to make that do some work on that house retrofit. What I was going to say, yes, the change to renewables. I know that that is happening now. So we have laser. We're using laser. So that would be just making sure that we get to a better place. In terms of the emissions and the percentage, I know in the 2021 plan, it also included the whole of the HRA account, which made that number huge. And that's not our direct, we don't have direct control over that. So that's why the next plan is lower. So we can't make that percentage because it would be this huge number. It would be minus something. I wouldn't even be able to begin to do this. So we have to have a new baseline to start from now, I guess, because that last baseline was incorrect, if you like, because it was including the whole of the HRRKN, and we wanted, and that's not, we don't have direct control over that. We should be able to get percentage very soon, because once we get a next gas emissions report, Military Road will be out of that 3,234 tonnes, and we should see quite a huge reduction, and then it's a simple maths equation to get our percentage then. I think that's about all the comments I've got to say on that. But yeah, thanks for all your comments today. You know, some really interesting things in there that we take away. I've made some notes. I think Leo has as well. And wait for it to come, all of those points to come back in, then take it to Cabinet. Hopefully we can adopt it, get on with it.
Thank you, Councillor Dawkins. I think Councillor Dan Smith's got one last point.
Just one last point. Yes, on the military road thing. I mean, obviously that's a reduction in the area that the council's estate currently covers. So when the calculations are made, obviously we had a larger square meterage at the time that estate was part of Canterbury's estate. That part of it, the military road, then future calculations will be based on a smaller area. So the calculation needs to be equivalent in the sense that it's per square metre, or some such equivalence measuring system, in order to be actually measurable as a reduction overall. Otherwise, it's not clear. I mean, it will be a reduction, because obviously that's our most expensive bit. But what I'm saying is that it's not a specific drop just for that. It will be an average over the whole area, and you need to measure that against the change in the average over the whole area going forwards. And I would suggest something like square meterage would be useful to do that with. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that's the end of that item. To summarise, I think there's quite a lot of really useful feedback there from everyone. And thanks for Councillor Dawkins for coming along to just give us a bit of context on this. I don't think we need to take any specific votes. This is just general comments. Agreed by general assent, and those all been noted by Pippa. So thank you very much, everyone. I don't need to do a show of hands or anything like that, do I? So thank you very much, everyone. We'll then move on to item number 7, which is the consultation on the consultation and engagement strategy. That's on pages 58 to 121 of your papers. And we're going to start off again with Leo to make the introduction to this paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Again, consultation and engagement forms a key plank of the Council's corporate plan and the way it wants to operate. Again, we're in the middle of a 12-week consultation which ends on at 5 p.m. on Monday, the 3rd of October. And again, you're acting as a consultee today. We're trying to take your views on board. Lots of early engagement took place, as you'd imagine, with an consultation engagement strategy. This time last year, an online pulse survey, 8 stakeholder workshops with voluntary groups, parish councils, statutory partners and young people. And we had more than 100 comments on social media. The feedback led to our 5 strategic objectives that we're proposing: engaging early to shape policies together, doing our very best to include all voices, especially the underrepresented, equip staff for strong engagement, because although the engagement work is run quite a lot by my team, it's a whole council endeavour by all people creating policy and driving the services. Show how community input shapes our choices, so the transparency piece, and collate frequent feedback to understand our priorities. The aim is to be confident, coordinated and consistent, and follow that best practice as much as we possibly can. strengthen trust and transparency, improve quality and impact of engagement, and really work hard to reach those hard-to-reach voices and make sure they're heard. The guiding principles that have been proposed are, I was going to try and explain what a part stand is, but I know the word, but I can't say it, so I'll move on. Proactive engagement, accessibility, responsiveness, transparency, and mnemonic. That's it, I needed to run at it. Proactive engagement, accessibility, responsiveness, transparency, and the ability to support our communities. We want to engage people early, so as we're shaping our policies together, there's been lots of best practice around that very, very recently, but it's something we've got lots of work to do on that. It's something where we want to get to. Include all voices, again, especially underrepresented, but give our staff the tools to engage with the community and collate that feedback. I think I've repeated myself there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Leo. We will consider this draft consultation and engagement strategy, which is currently out for consultation. That will be going to Cabinet on the 3rd of November. I'd just like to open the debate on this one. I think I see Councillor Brady first.
Thank you, Chair. I chose to mention this during this item, but I think this is true for all the other items that we're consulting on. I don't think we should be, whilst there's a live consultation, having a council debate on the strategies, because we're in listening mode, the council at the moment. We would like to have residents' views on these strategies without being influenced by councillor views and opinions. And I'm not saying that residents and respondents to any of the consultations will be influenced, but we don't know. So I would like to see these debates in our committees after the consultation is closed, because then the Cabinet, who are the decision makers, can then look at the respondents, the results, and know that they're uninfluenced by the council and councillors, and then listen to and see the points that come from this debate, and then that can influence strategy and decision made by the Cabinet. So I voiced these concerns through email and before this meeting, and the response was, this is how we've always done it, but that doesn't mean we should proceed in this way. And seeing we are doing in this way, I'd like to, once the results of these consultations come out, I'd like to see a paragraph to signpost that councillors had a debate on this strategy, and respondents may or may not have been influenced by that debate, and then have a discussion. So obviously this is a consultation on consultations. It's such a council and local authority thing to do. Have a discussion on whether the process should be changed moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo or Bill. Not sure.
Thank you, Chair. I'm more than happy to put that caveat into the report so that people understand there was a debate from scrutiny. Overview. Overview's comments will be put into the report as well, so that people, the decision makers, which will be the Cabinet, can weigh up whose views they take into account when they're making their decision.
Bill.
Thank you, Chair. And duly noted, Councillor. And as I've mentioned earlier to you when we spoke, I will take the matter away to our legal team to get clarification on that particular point. As it stands, I refer to the existing constitution, which says that this body is to contribute and review the development of the council's corporate strategies and policies, of which I consider these part of. So I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think we just need to get that clarification from legal on your point. Thank you.
Do you want to come off that briefly?
I welcome that. I don't think the constitution needs to be changed. We can, as a committee, still influence strategies. We can just do it after a public consultation, so we know that they're free, fair, and uninfluenced. But thank you for taking that on board.
Thanks, Councillor Brady. Yeah, the comments have been noted. Do we have anyone else who wishes to comment on the consultation engagement strategy? I am consulting with you. Councillor Mellish.
It's not actually. I'm happy with the document the way it's presented. I think Leo's enthusiasm for the way in which it was responded to is a bit overblown. That we had what's in the region of was it? So the pulse survey was 273 responses, 100 comments on social media, and it sounds as if the stakeholder groups were more successful. We have a population of about 170,000 in the Canterbury district, of which about 90,000 are working population age. That is not a good contact response. That's why I'm welcoming the document, because I'm hoping that we can actually change that around and actually sort of start to engage in the ways that the document is talking about. And I think I would also like to see how you're actually going to engage with councillors and how councillors can engage with the community in that further consultation process when you're building those groups, when you're building those contact points. It's a vague document, but with very good aims and objectives. That makes sense. For instance, you say we will develop targeted, accessible ways to involve underrepresented groups. It would be nice to see in future how you intend to do that. I wouldn't see it in this document here, but we need to have that kind of report back, how those groups are being developed, why they're being developed, who's been developed with it, what's our involvement in that as councillors. You can see where the drift I'm taking.
Yeah, Leo.
Thank you, Chair. I take your point on the engagement, but sometimes non-engagement is feedback as well. But we are coming from a place where people don't feel they're listened to. Quite often they feel consultations are tick boxes, and sometimes they are challenging. The local plan consultation will be a challenge because we have to make difficult decisions. We don't have a choice, and people will feel not listened to. In building those communities of interest and engagement, 100% we're going to tap into councillors' knowledge, expertise about the people in their communities that we can talk to. And it's a way, if we can give council staff and officers throughout the council the tools to pick this baton up, it doesn't have to fall on a couple of officers in my team. It's a whole council endeavour, and we're all behind trying to bring people with us as much as we possibly can in the time we have left as a council. Hopefully that feeds into a legacy into the new council. We can take that best practice with us and encourage whoever our new colleagues will be in whatever configuration to adopt that too. So 100% we're going to give you lots of work to do as councillors, lots of people to help tell us who to talk to, but you to talk to them as well, please.
Councillor Thomas.
Sorry, Chair, it's more of a comment than anything else. These consultations, I don't think people are even aware of them. That's half the problem. I do remember going to one of the consultations or a briefing on one of them, and it had a figure of 1. And I did ask the officer, I said, that's 1%, isn't it? He said, no, that is one person. So it's always been the same. I don't think people are aware of it. And the ones that are engaged, as I've said this before, most of the people in our district, as long as the bins are picked up, they're quite happy. They're not worried about it, and they don't feel they can change anything anyway, so they won't consult. So, and they're not aware of it. So we go round and round in circles, hence councillors and the officers make decisions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Dan Thomas. I'm really sorry for confusing Councillor Dan Smith. Sorry, I was confusing you with someone else. I'm so sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, on the point that's been raised twice now, the part of the problem, I think, for advertising these kind of things is that the nature of the council's website is it's a passive. It's like a signboard, or it's an electronic signboard, and if people don't see it, they don't see it. They don't visit it. It's not there. So one of the ways perhaps would be to have a list of consultations when we know about them, as often as we do know about them, go out with some publication that everybody or every household at least would receive, So council tax bill, for example, would be some such documentation that goes out and just have a list of these are council consultations at this time that goes with them. So at least the household would have a list, physical list, that they could then run through if they were interested. I'm not saying it would get a massive response, but I suggest it would reach more people. Anyway, just a suggestion.
Come back on that. The Access to Council Services Working Group chaired by Councillor Prentice is looking through our website and the way we can engage the public a little bit more. I think Councillor Thomas is right. People have very busy lives, and sometimes if services are working well for them, they don't feel the need to participate. But that doesn't stop us trying our very best to encourage people to participate. Council tax bills, people always raise that. I don't think it's legally allowed, but I'll double check on that. But time and time again, people have said that, and I'm afraid I don't think we can. It has to be prescribed mail out. I think that's all the points I've covered. Thank you.
Councillor Forrester.
Thank you, Chair. It was going to be 1, but now it's 2 points. So first, on that council tax bill point, I think I agree that it has to be in prescribed form, but is there anything prohibiting us from putting another slip in the envelope, if you like? So the council tax form follows the prescribed form, but also comes with a helpful flyer about this, that, and the other. And my second point was in respect of the response rates to these 3 consultations a day particularly, and them not having a high engagement rate, and if timing was any consideration in that. I noted that the majority of the time for these consultations has been over the summer period. They launched in mid-July. There's then obviously 6 weeks until the end of August. Lots of people go away. Many other people just try and not do much work and enjoy the sunshine. I know, a lot of people would rather do anything than filling out consultation on consultations, but perhaps particularly when the sun's shining. And therefore, is that the most opportune moment? If we have a particularly low engagement rate, is there consideration of extending the time frame for responses on this or any other consultations? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll double check about slipping something into the council tax bills, but obviously there's always an issue of timing. There might not be consultations taking place at the billing time, so it wouldn't always be the perfect timing, but I'll double check on that. Response rates, that's why our best practice, and I say this with a local plan consultation of 6 weeks, is 12. We aim for 12 weeks consultation. That tries to overcome the challenges around Easter, summer holidays, Christmas period, because that is really difficult. Otherwise, there'd only be certain times of the year when we can consult. And also, we have a number of consultations happening at the moment. There might be a consultation fatigue or overload with the local plan coming down the line, town centre strategies we're engaging on, East Kent Design Code, the cultural strategies coming through the system, which is a sign that we really do want to understand people's views, but they're busy living their lives as well. So it is a huge challenge. Extending the time, I personally think that people either start the consultation response right at the beginning when they're really furious, or right at the end when the deadline is. I hug a deadline closer than anybody, I can guarantee that in the room. And it just depends on the subject matter as well. So the last consultation for the local plan, more than 4,200 responses, which took an age for us to analyse and robustly look into the data to understand how much people feel it affects their lives is the gauge, I would say. If we're in a perfect world, we wouldn't have started these consultations in mid-July, although it was a little bit before the summer holidays. But like I say, there's lots of consultations coming down the line, and it's trying to manage that.
Chair, could I just come back on that? Thank you. Just following what you said about it being best practice for there to be 12 weeks, and that is the case. However, I understand that's not a requirement anymore. And your later comment that people either respond furiously at the outset or wait until the deadline because that's their nature. I'm the latter group, I have to say, on all things. But given that, and that 12 weeks isn't a requirement, but is best practice, and I believe government guidance is that the time frame should suit the consultation, is there a possibility in the future of looking at shorter timeframes and staggering consultations? So perhaps if there is consultation fatigue, of there being 3 out at once, people don't suffer from that, and particularly stakeholder groups that we may engage with aren't trying to have 3 meetings at the same time in the same period about potentially 3 different consultations with their members, which may be arduous. Thank you.
The reason we go for 12 weeks is that lots of our stakeholder groups and community groups, parish councils, lots of our stakeholders like to have a look at the consultation, read through, have a meeting to discuss it, have another meeting to firm up their recommendations, and they don't meet as often as we do as officers and councillors. So it's to give them the time and space to come back, particularly with local plans or consultations that really do affect people's lives. So it's trying to give people the best possible chance. That's why we go for 12 weeks. It is a challenge trying to balance the consultation fatigue. We really want to hear people, but yeah, it is a challenge. I'll take a look at trying to schedule it with shorter consultations, but 12 weeks is our best practice. And I'm not always convinced that government consultations is the best practice to follow. I'd rather us lead the way.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Let me come back. I've just had a thought. I've had text messages, and I can't remember if I've had emails from the council, to be fair. And it may go over data protection, and I will bring it up at the working group. Basically, where electronically to our devices, i.e. to our phones from our phone numbers, whether there could be a text message with the link for the consultation. I'm sure people will just delete them, but it may be another way of engaging the public. As I said, it may verge on data protection, so I'm not sure if what I'm suggesting could even be done. So, but I have had text messages saying, you need to pay council tax. So they do come forward. So they've got my details somewhere. Thank you, Chair.
There is a Gov Notify system that we can use for major incidents and issues like that. I think my worry would be that they'd get text fatigue and they'd stop looking at them if we get too many. It's a real challenge. We can give it a go and see if that works, to do some testing. Yeah, I know. And social media does come back as our most effective channel. And if we had millions of pounds and Royal Mail were really quick and could deliver letters really, really quickly and get to everybody, including Herne Bay, where quite often we do mail outs and it doesn't arrive in Herne Bay, that would be the perfect world. So we're trying to do the best we possibly can with the resources we have. I knew you'd say that as well, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Brady.
Thanks for letting me come back, Chair. And obviously, Leo's the expert in his field, and he knows the holy grail is to figure out how to get people to fill out consultations who don't usually fill out consultations. The nature of the beast is everybody that fills out consultations usually fill out consultations. And you got the carrot and the stick. You can kind of give an incentive, but then you're skewing the data because you're only getting people who take incentives for filling out consultations. We could be like Australia, where you have to vote or you're locked. It's against the law. You can have the stick method, but I'm going to be a cracked record again. And I did mock it, a consultation on a consultation, but it should be applauded again that we're trying to look into it. It's a pretty hard nut to crack. And if we do figure it out and consultation respondents increase, then maybe that's a revenue stream and we can sell our ideas to other local authorities as a exemplar. Thank you.
Yeah, it is a genuine desire to engage with our communities and overcome the tick box idea that the idea that nobody ever listens, which is challenging because you guys have to make very difficult decisions where people are 50% on one side and 50% on the other. So, but if we don't try, then we'll never know and we'll never engage with our community. So it's a genuine effort to do so.
Thank you. I think Leo mentioned there is a bit of crossover and some sort of common areas of topic areas we're looking at with the access to customer services councillor working group, and we had our first meeting earlier in the week I know Councillor Buttman and Councillor Thomas are both on that. This is something I'm really passionate about as well. And I hope that, I'm quite optimistic actually that if we are able to improve the way customers, our residents, access our services, they might by sort of association be more inclined to engage in consultations and engage more generally. Obviously, there's that's very relevant for the next item as well. But did you want to come back?
Incentive idea, obviously the budget. 2% reduction in the council tax if you fill out 5 consultations a year. You can have that one for free.
Thank you, Councillor Brady.
I'll pass that on to the Director of Finance with your name on it.
Lots of really good points raised there, and obviously, that's an ongoing piece of work. I believe there's a new consultation engagement officer started very recently. So that's really good news.
Yeah, we lost Victoria to bigger and better things. She moved on and got promoted. So Victor has arrived, but not every consultation officer's got VIC at the start of their name. But Victor joined us last week and he's getting to grips with the team and how we do things and our desire to push on. And actually, the team are also doing the consultation and engagement for the whole of local government reorganisation for Kent as well. So things are not quiet at the moment. We're handling it for the whole county as an honest broker.
Great, thank you. Thanks, everyone. Again, that was general comments, which have all been recorded and minuted. So there's no need for any specific votes. So we'll move on to number 8, which is the consultation on the tenant engagement strategy on pages 122 to 192. Leo.
Thank you. I can only apologise for speaking so much. So the draft tenant engagement strategy, again, is a key policy in the Council's corporate plan. We want to engage with our tenants in the best possible way. It's also a regulatory requirement from the Regulator of Social Housing's consumer standards. The government has toughened up the work we need to do with our tenants. Again, we're in the middle of a 12-week consultation, which ends at 5 p.m. on Monday, the 3rd of October. So please, if you're in touch with tenants, please encourage them to take part. We want a strategy that sets out a proactive and coordinated approach. So centres the tenant voice in decisions at all levels, clarifies how tenants can influence, challenge and scrutinise what we do, establishes clear and consistent feedback loops so they understand that we're acting on their feedback, improves representation, particularly of unheard voices, which is really very challenging, keep that same piece of building transparency, trust and accountability, and it reinforces our regulatory preparedness and long-term commitment to our tenant involvement. We have a housing promise, which hopefully does what it says on the tin. We'll put you and your safety at the heart of everything we do. We promise to provide a housing service that keeps you safe and your home well maintained, listens to you, involves you in decision-making about your homes, treats you fairly, respectfully and with care, and supports you when times are tough. We'll do our best to get things right first time. If we don't, we'll fix it and learn from it. And in return, the other side of the coin, we ask tenants to pay their rent or service charges on time, look after their home and community, be respectful for others, and let us know early if they need support. It's about working together and building a stronger community together. We do want that tenant voice to be part of everything we do, and again, just not a tick box. Tenants have told us that they want to be listened to early enough in the process that they can effect change as we change our services and our policies. They are the experts, and we understand that. We need to understand where they're coming from to see how their input leads to action in that sort of you said, we did type idea, to be able to influence real change and to hold us to account when things don't work and to support them in doing that. Our proposed strategic objectives in the strategy are about keeping tenants informed about their home, giving tenants real ways to have their say, showing we listen and take action, making it easy for everyone to join in, and helping tenants feel confident to get involved. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Leo. Anyone want to make any comments on this? Councillor Forrester.
Thank you, Chair. Mine's a question, really, rather than a comment, because I think this is great and I'll be promoting it to the residents in my ward as we get close to the deadline for those that haven't done it immediately. But before I do so, I noted both on the paper and on the website the deadline's Monday the 3rd of October, and someone check that I'm not misreading a calendar. It's either Friday the 3rd of October or Monday the 6th of October. I can read a calendar, right?
No,
Yeah,
you can.
okay, thank you.
And for my former career, accuracy was my god. I worshipped the temple of accuracy, but I've let myself down. It'll be the Monday, because I prefer consultations to finish on a Monday so that people have at least one more weekend so we'll clarify that.
Yeah, that'd be really helpful.
Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
really helpful. Thank you. And I think I double checked that as well. So it's been I need to lay down.
If it helps, I looked at it on the website and I only noticed it when I then read the papers and cross-checked. So it took me twice.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Button.
So it probably is on there somewhere, or in like the tenant agreements. But is there something for if a tenant writes in? Is there like a minimum response time given from the council? Not to, and I don't mean to a complaint, just to a question. Do they aim to respond in a set number of days?
They do, and you're now testing me on what that response time is. And there's a huge amount of work going on around response times, but also dealing with complaints in a timely fashion. And we're tightening up the timetable for us to go back to people at stage 1 and stage 2 of the complaints process. I want to say it's 5 days, but Pip probably knows better than me. No, I'll clarify that and come back to you.
I will offer if Councillor Hazelton does want to say anything. Let's.
Sorry about that. I think it depends very much on the nature of the inquiry. So there are different timeframes for people's applications, for example, to go on the Housing Needs Register and for checking documentation. There are other timescales. So there's not one simple answer for you, Councillor Buckman. But the reality is that the response times for complaints is not good enough, and that's at the moment where our focus is, to get because there are time frames for responses to complaints, stage 1 and stage 2, as Leo has said, and that's where we're focusing our efforts so that we get closer to compliance with those set out times. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hazelton. I appreciate you weren't preparing to speak, so that's great. I was just going to make a comment about the sort of demographic makeup of people who respond to tenants' sort of initiatives and things like that. I noticed quite a lot were in the older age group, which is great that the older age group is feels very much like they can respond to things, and they will respond to things, but obviously that's skewing quite a lot of the data that we get back. I noticed also there's a particularly and again this is quite a good thing in some respects. There's a lot more women respond than men. And obviously, there is an imbalance there, because it means that we might not be necessarily reaching a huge chunk of the population. But naturally, there's some very big positives there, but quite a lot of working age people aren't necessarily responding. And I'm particularly looking at the tenant engagement review, which had 32 responses. And I'm not looking at the other paper just yet, but so that's something obviously we want to we want to tackle. Anyone else want to make any comments on this particular item? I think not. Leo, you want to come on anything? No? Okay. Well, the comments we've had have been recorded and minuted. So I think that concludes our agenda. Thanks very much, everyone. The date of the next meeting is 7 p.m. on the 9th of October. We'll see you then.